I'm so excited that you're here. My name is Jen. I am a physical therapist turned life coach, and after battling 20 plus years of burnout, overwhelm, and anxiety from juggling all the things as a people pleaser, I decided to hire my own life coach. Had such an incredible transformation over our year of working together that I became a certified life coach, and now I have all of the tools and skills and the experience from doing this for over 4 years now to help you overcome people-pleasing, anxiety, procrastination, overthinking, self-doubt, all of those things that are holding you back, especially keeping you from being on your own priority list. So I'm so glad you're here today because we're going to talk about a topic that so many of you requested. And just a little side note, did you know that I do these topics based off of what you recommend? So no matter where you are watching me from, whether it's in my private wellness and well-being Facebook group, on my Instagram, on my YouTube, or even in my newsletter, just know that if you reply or reach out to me with a topic, I'm going to do a live on it for you because I am here to serve you and educate you and learn along the way as well. So we're going to learn about what emotional eating is. We're going to learn about why we emotionally eat and 6 tips to stop it. And just know that maybe you don't battle emotional eating, but maybe you battle emotional drinking or emotional shopping or scrolling social media when you start to feel a feeling that you don't want to feel. Okay, so all of this, even though it's geared towards emotional eating, just know it can help you with those things as well. But before we dive into that, I just want to share a little bit about my story in regards to emotional eating. So before I worked with my life coach and became a life coach and became more aware of this, I would reach for food and wine all the time to soothe the emotions that I didn't want to feel, right? I would come home from a hard day of work and be like, God, that was so rough. I deserve a glass of wine, right? Or I would come home and I would be like so worn out and anxious, and because I wasn't filling my own cup at the time, that I would snap at my kids or my husband, and then I would feel guilty, and then I would grab the wine or the bag of potato chips or the bag of popcorn and proceed to eat it all, and then have some guilt and shame around that. And then I started coming home from work or even being at work and starting to feel like anxious and just not wanting to feel that in my body. I didn't realize that at the time, but I started to feel anxious, or maybe I just had a difficult conversation with, there used to be a really, really toxic person that I used to have to work with. And I would go back to my office and hop on Amazon and shop. So if any of that sounds familiar, if you can relate to any of those, then keep listening because we're going to dive into emotional eating now and talk just more about it, right? Just kind of give you a little bit more knowledge because, again, I'm a big believer in once you know, you can do better, right? When you know better, you do better. That's kind of like one of my biggest sayings that I say to my clients for sure. And just know that at the end of this, I'm going to give you 6 journal prompts that are also shared wherever you're watching this. And I really want you to dive into those questions. And if you struggle with this, and really just take the time to answer those. So when we start talking about emotional eating, like some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself to see if you are an emotional eater is, do you eat more when you're feeling stressed? Do you eat when you're not hungry or when you're full? Do you eat to feel better, to calm or soothe yourself when you're sad, mad, bored, or anxious? Do you want to reward yourself with food? So many of us grew up like as food as a reward, like you do this and mama will buy you a candy bar, right? You do this and we'll get ice cream on the way home, right? Do you regularly eat until you stuff yourself? Does food make you feel safe? Do you feel like food is a friend? Do you feel powerless and out of control around food? Okay, so any of those questions, if you answered yes, then more than likely you struggle with some emotional eating, okay? So what is emotional eating? So we don't always eat just to satisfy a physical hunger, right? Many of us turn to food for comfort, stress, relief, or to reward ourselves. And when we do, we tend to reach for junk food, sweets, highly processed stuff, or comforting but unhealthy foods, right? You might reach for the pint of ice cream if you're feeling down, or order the pizza because you're bored and lonely on the weekend, or swing by this drive-through during a stressful day of work, right? So you might leave for your lunch break, and instead of, stopping by your grocery store to hit the salad bar, you stop by and hit Bojangles for some fried chicken and biscuits, right? So again, if you've watched any of my lives or been on any of my webinars or been in any of my coaching groups, you're going to know that this is my space for saying Do not shame yourself. Do not judge yourself. This live is to help bring more awareness to you so that when you know better, you do better. We're not going to shame ourselves for doing any of these things, right? Because we have been in this pattern for a really long time. And more than likely, we learned it from generations before us, right? So we're not going to beat ourselves up. We're not going to feel guilty. We're not going to feel shame. We're just going to learn and try to do better, okay? So emotional eating is using food to make yourself feel better, to fill an emotional need rather than your stomach. And unfortunately, emotional eating doesn't fix the emotional problems, as we all know. In fact, it usually will make you feel worse. Afterwards, not only do you still have that emotional issue, but then you also have the guilt or the shame around overeating. So we will emotionally eat to avoid a specific emotion or to avoid feeling anything at all. So I want you to think about, what are you trying to avoid? That's one of the things that I have started doing when this became aware to me, is that when I go to grab for something that's not necessarily in alignment with my mission and goals for my health and well-being, like potato chips, like I still enjoy potato chips, French fries. I'm a salty carb kind of girl, salty carb kind of girl. When I want those, I stop and ask myself, like, why am I reaching for this? Is it because I'm truly hungry and I want some chips? If that's the case, then I'm going to proceed. If I'm like, oh no, I just yelled at my son for after telling him to take the trash out for the 10th time, I feel guilty for that, so I'm trying to eat the potato chips. Okay, so having that, I call it a purposeful pause to evaluate why you're doing it in the first place. So as you start doing this, some of the things that you want to be aware of is, what were you trying to avoid? Where were you? Because sometimes it's environments that trigger us, like going into a bar and you told yourself you're not going to drink, so I'm going to emotionally eat instead, right? Or you go into a party and they don't have cocktails or alcohol, which you usually use to relax yourself, so you go and start eating all the food, right? So these are just, there's no judgment around these things. This is just bringing awareness to you. Did something happen, or did you have a particular feeling right before you began to emotionally eat? So there's actually a cycle, the emotional eating cycle, and I've kind of described it in several of the stories and scenarios that I've described that I've been through. So occasionally using food as a pick-me-up or a reward or to celebrate isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when eating is your primary emotional coping mechanism, when your first impulse is to open the refrigerator whenever you're stressed, upset, angry, or lonely, exhausted, or bored, you get stuck in this unhealthy cycle where the real feeling or the problem's never addressed, okay? So again, I'm not saying that having some birthday cake for your birthday is a bad thing. If having, a nice glass of wine on Friday because you want to enjoy it is a bad thing. I want you to just pay attention to this cycle and become more aware of it, so that you aren't continuing to build this bad habit, this bad pattern of not addressing your feelings, right? Because they're there for a reason. So this kind of starts with something happens that upsets you, right? So that's step one of the cycle, which leads you to, you feel an overwhelming urge to eat. And then step 3 is you eat more than you know you should, which leads to step 4, you feel guilty and powerless over food, right? And that cycle just kind of keeps going and going until you become aware of it and have the tools to break it, right? So emotional hunger can't be filled with food. Eating may feel good in the moment, but the feelings that triggered the eating are still there, right? Because you haven't dealt with them. We've just kind of stuffed them down with the food we're eating. And you often feel worse than you did before you took in those unnecessary calories, right? So you beat yourself up for messing up and not having the willpower. You guys know what I'm talking about. You get in your head and start making it even worse, and then you feel even worse than when you did when you first started to eat emotionally. What makes it worse is that you stop learning healthier ways to deal with your emotions, right? You have a harder and harder time controlling your weight. You feel increasingly powerless over both food and your feelings. But no matter how powerless you feel over food and your feelings, it is possible to make this change, okay? So you're here watching this in some capacity, so just know that you have the power to change this behavior right now, right? You can learn healthier ways to deal with your emotions, avoid your triggers, conquer your cravings, and finally put a stop to it. So some of the things that often cause emotional eating are stress, right? I'm not going to go into a lot of details about these, but we know that stress is all around us all the time. And sometimes it makes you feel hungry, right? It's this, when stress is chronic, it's often chaotic, fast-paced. Your body produces high levels of cortisol. It's a big buzzword out there right now. And cortisol can cause cravings for salty, sweet, and fried foods, right? Which are all the ones that we want to emotionally soothe ourselves, right? They give you a burst of energy and a little bit of a dopamine hit to make you feel good, right? So there's pleasure in eating those things. And the more uncontrolled the stress is in your life, the more likely you are to turn to food, okay? Stuffing your emotions is the next reason why we might emotionally eat. We've talked about this throughout the whole live so far, is eating can be a temporary way to silence or stuff down those uncomfortable emotions like anger, fear, sadness, boredom, loneliness, resentment as people pleasers, shame. Because when you're numbing yourself with food, you can avoid the difficult emotions you'd rather not feel. The third reason we may emotionally eat is because boredom or feelings of emptiness, right? Do you ever just eat to give yourself something to do? To relieve like the boredom as a way to like kind of filling up that void in your life. You feel unfulfilled and empty, and food is just a way to occupy your mouth and your time in the moment, okay? Number 4 is childhood habits, right? Think back to your childhood and memories of food. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the video. Did your parents reward you with good behavior with ice cream? Take you out for pizza when you got a good report card, or you had a good volleyball game or a good swim meet? Or do they serve you sweets when you're feeling bad, like when you're feeling sad? Like you broke up with your boyfriend, let's grab a pint of ice cream, right? And soothe our feelings. You see that a lot on TV shows and sitcoms and things like that. Or maybe you're eating because you're kind of being driven by those past happy memories, like the nostalgic memories, like feeling cherished memories of grilling burgers in the backyard with your dad, or baking or eating cookies with your mom or your grandmom. Social influences is also like the 5th way that we can be kind of pushed into or want to emotionally eat. So coming together with people for a meal is a great way to relieve stress, but it can also lead to overeating. So it's very easy to overindulge simply because the food is there or because everyone else is eating. You may also overeat in social situations because of nervousness, like I talked about earlier. Or perhaps a family or circle of friends encourages you to overeat, and it's easier to go along with the group, right? Because people want you to do whatever they're doing. So if they're like getting full on the nachos and the fries, they want you to do it so they don't feel as bad about themselves, okay? That's a big thing, and being aware of that is key. So when emotional eating becomes a habit and ingrained over like many years, it can be hard to see all the ways in which our relationship with food is working against us, right? Living in a culture that's obsessed with food and fitness and alcohol, we're also taught at a very young age that carrying extra weight means that we are less than, and that we are overweight because we have no self-control, okay? But deep down, we know that's not true. But for years and years, if you struggle with your weight, that leads to you doubting yourself, right? And then we start to downgrade or put down ourselves, our worthiness, our self-confidence, like takes a plummet. We feel ashamed because our body doesn't meet our strict standards of beauty, right? Or society's standards of beauty. And we wonder if there's something wrong with us. And the real problem is that we haven't yet learned how to love and respect ourselves as we are, right? So I love this body that I am in right now, even though it's 25 pounds heavier than it was a year ago because of perimenopause, right? I'm still working very hard to love this body and know that me and this body are on the same side and we're working hard together. I love my body, but I'm still striving to lose the weight because I know that I will feel healthier at that weight, okay? But I still love the body that I'm in, right? And respect it and honor it. And that's a struggle every day. Every day I get up and during my workout, I look at the mirror and I go through some of those affirmations. So just know if you struggle with body image, that it's very normal, but we also need to conquer that as we're conquering emotional eating, okay? So just know that food's not the enemy, right? As you enjoy the treat, really enjoy it and cut out the guilt and the shame, because that's what's also keeping you from holding on to the weight, okay? But when you go to enjoy the food, the ice cream, the french fries, make sure you're having it because you want to have it and enjoy it, not because you're doing it for one of the reasons above. Stress, boredom, societal pressure, those sorts of things, okay? Find other ways to feed your feelings, right? So let's talk about some ways to reduce your emotional eating. Number 1, I talked about earlier, the purposeful pause. When the craving hits to eat, something like that, like one of your trigger foods, one of your go-to foods, you can often feel powerless about it. And that's where I want you to really like pause and just think about why you want the potato chips, why you want the wine, why are you shopping on Amazon? Do you really need 50 makeup removers right now, or are you trying to soothe some sort of an emotion? Okay, so take five. Like take 5 deep breaths before you actually just start emotionally eating, and really just question why you're doing it. Okay, learn to accept and process your feelings, even the bad ones. Okay, a feeling, an emotion will go through your body completely in 90 seconds. Right, so if you just sit in the feeling of boredom, anger, sadness, loneliness, anxiety, it will go through your body in 90 seconds, and then you can move on. Okay, so just allow yourself to be uncomfortable. If you have watched me before and know, you can do some deep breathing, you can do some box breathing to help you process and get through those emotions in 90 seconds. This is a big thing that I work with my clients in my mastermind and my private clients with is, managing and becoming more emotionally intelligent, right? Because so often we just want to stuff them down because, again, growing up, we were told, don't cry, it's not a big deal. We weren't really encouraged to process our feelings. Number 3 is indulge without overeating by savoring your food. Okay, so again, if you have this strong desire to have some potato chips, then take 5 potato chips out, or take a serving and put it in a bowl and put the rest away, and then sit with your feelings and enjoy the potato chips and be mindful about eating the potato chips and enjoying them. Slow down and enjoy the food in the moment, right? Take a few breaths before you start eating them. Pay attention to how the texture of the potato chip, how it tastes in your mouth, how does it smell, all of those things, right? By slowing down, you'll find that you're going to appreciate the food much more, okay? Number 4 is practice mindful eating, right? This is a big buzzword out there right now too, is being more mindful. So eating while you're doing other things such as watching TV, driving, or playing with your phone can prevent you from really enjoying your food. So since your mind is elsewhere, you might not realize that you're full, and you just kind of keep eating because it's right there in front of you, right? So eating more mindfully can help you focus on the food and the pleasure of the meal, and curb overeating. Number 5 is support yourself with healthy lifestyle habits. So again, with most of my lives, you get lots of healthy tips because you need your body to feel healthy in order for your mind and your mental well-being to be its sharpest and its best, right? So making movement a priority every day, whether it's a home workout, going to the gym, Pilates, yoga, or even a walk outside, make sure you're making exercise a priority, right? That helps reduce those stress hormones in your body. Get enough sleep, 7 to 8 hours at least, because when you are a body that's tired also craves those quick bursts of energy from the foods that we like to overeat, right? Aim for relaxation, right? So we're just talking about other ways to support your healthy lifestyle. So we're doing prioritize movement, get enough sleep, make time for relaxation, and connect with others, okay? And the last tip that I wanted to share is journaling, okay? So journaling can really help with emotional eating. It aids in you processing your emotions. It allows you to pause for a moment before you dive into and overeat with your foods that you like to emotionally eat. And it provides some clarity. It starts showing you like why you are emotionally eating, so that with that awareness can come change, okay? So last thing I wanted to share is just that there are these journal prompts that I'm sharing with you. There are 6 of them with multiple questions. And just take your time and go through those, right? Really take the time to become even more aware of emotional eating. I promise these journal prompts will help you. So if you liked this little lesson in emotional eating and you want to continue to work to become the woman you've always wanted to be, the woman who's got her life together, who no longer or doesn't emotionally eat all the time, the woman with a self-care routine, the woman who is on her priority list each and every day, the ones who their friends are like, girl, what's changed? You got your SHIT together now, right? If you want any of those things, just know that you deserve to be the woman that you dreamed of being as a little girl, right? You deserve the life that you dreamt up as a little girl. And maybe you have the job, the home, the spouse, the kids that you always thought you wanted, but you still feel, it doesn't feel like you thought it would, right? Those are the things that I help my clients with, and I would love to hop on a session with you. I offer these free Calm Your Chaos sessions where we really can just connect in this complimentary session about what you're struggling with and kind of give you clarity on your next steps, and whether that's working with me or I make a different recommendation or just give you some tips. That's what we're going to do, is just help you get clarity, because as a life coach, that's the thing that I help people with, is help them make decisions and help them get clarity with where they need to go next. So thanks so much. I will see you next Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and have an amazing day.